family, thank you for gathering with me this evening as we continue our series on what it means to be a house church. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what forming your house church looks like. The basic mechanics and steps that you need to take to be ready to have your first house church meeting as soon as June 14th. So here we go. Here's your basic steps. The first two things you need to know is that when we define a house church, we mean that we are looking for 7 to 12 people or 2 to 3 family units. That is the makeup of a house church. Now, we do have a caveat. We want you to leave space for the neighbor. So if our max number or the max number you're comfortable with is 12, perhaps you start with 10. If your max comfort number is 10, perhaps you start with 6 members. That way, there is space to welcome a new family, to welcome a new person, to be a part of your house church. The other thing that you have to answer as a family or an individual is, how do you want to gather? Do you want to gather on Zoom? We will put together a resource guide so that you and your house church will know how you do this via a tool like Zoom. Or are you ready to gather in person? If you are, then we want you to socially distance, come together, and gather to worship as a house church. Now that you know those two things, the very next thing that you have to do, you need to call your people. Who are those other families that you are close to in the church? Who do you already in this church hang out with? Who are those people that already help you to go deeper? You need to call them up, and you need to decide what the makeup of your house church will look like. Now, if your house church is too big to fit into one, to all be able to go deeper, that's great news. That means that you have 2 house churches, and you're already doing some of the work that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of videos. But more on that later. But you need to decide. And once you have done that, if you're thinking, well, I called and nobody answered, that's not going to happen to you. Or if you're thinking, I'm new here, I don't know any of these people, or I'm not even sure how to go about, I don't want to call anyone, then all you have to do is submit a Google form that we will have available for you, where we will help sort people into house churches that are excited and ready to be a part of a house church. We've got your back. Once you have done that, the last thing you need to do is you need to identify who your house church connector will be. This person's role within your group is going to be the person who connects back to the larger church family. This person will let us know who showed up on Sunday morning. Were there any prayer requests lifted that need to go back to the larger church so that we might all be in prayer? Or is there anything that you want a pastor to know? This person will be the person that can make sure all of that information comes back to us. And once you have started to do this work of identifying who your people are, the very next thing you need to do is you need to create your covenant together. Covenant is a word that is used 264 times across the continuity of Scripture. And in it, it is a contract where God says, I will be your God and you will be my people. And God invites us over and over again to enter into these contracts with God, to enter into these covenants. And with that, there is oftentimes the expectation that we will also be a covenant people, that we will also be in covenant with one another. And so these are the things that we'll say, we're comfortable gathering together once a week, or we don't want to gather in person yet as a house church. We want to go on Zoom. It will help you to define the unique things that make up your house church of First United Methodist Church. How you gather, where you gather, who your people are. All of these things can get listed in your covenant together. And you might be thinking, writing a covenant sounds like an awful lot, Pastor Melissa, but don't worry. We also have you covered on that. We have a sample covenant that gives you some basic tenets that we as a church family want to see across all of our house churches, but with space for you to be able to fill in and uniquely name the things that will be identifying marks of your house church. I'm excited to see the beginnings of the formations of our house churches. Thank you for joining us this evening for this teaching moment. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple more days online when you join us back for the next teaching moment on what does it look like to gather on Sunday mornings. I'll see you soon, church.